Now you are where in the world? Where are you, Josh?
New York State.
What exactly happened to you?
Yeah, so I just got my first drone last July. It's a DJI Mini 2. I was flying it over a water park. I was orbiting a little playground at a low altitude, and I underestimated the distance between my drone and the tree line and crashed the drone into the tree. And the water park that I was flying over basically said that because of their no drone policy that I couldn't get it back and that it belonged to the water park. And so I filed a lawsuit against the water park, and I eventually lost that basically because of the fact that the negligence on my part is what caused the damages. So,
okay, so
and the assumption of risk.
Do you think that if your drone was worth a lot more, that you would be able to recover something, or it would have been their damages would have equaled the amount of your drone no matter what you did, no matter what you were flying?
According to the rules or the laws that was cited by the judge, it seems like it would apply no matter what the amount would have been.
Okay. Well, are you prepared to hear some good advice and some hard truths?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, because you are willing to admit that you were somewhat at fault.
Yeah.
But they kind of did you wrong. Now you were able to send me some video of this. This is Roseland Waterpark. Is this a park that you frequent from time to time, or is this near your house, or?
This is near the college I'm at.
Oh, I see.
So it is in my town.
Okay. So where were you standing when you were flying this? You were on the other side of the lake there?
Yeah, I was in the parking lot of Arby's.
Okay.
So I was off their property.
So was there a fence between you and the park?
No, there wasn't.
Okay. Would you have to have swam across to retrieve your drone?
No. After it crashed, I went over to the water park where there was an employee there, and I just went straight in and talked to him. So
okay. Did you see any no trespassing signs or anything?
No, there was no trespassing signs. But there's like two sections of the water park. There's a wake park, and then there's a water park. The water park was closed, so that part of it there was a fence for. But the wake park, which is where the employee was, that wasn't closed.
Okay. Did you crash behind a fence?
Yes.
You did. Okay. So initially when this happened, you thought, oh no, and then but you thought you could just go over there and talk to someone and get your drone back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, and we're about to see the crash here. Ryan, Jason, you want to chime in here on any of this?
I'll let Ryan take it first.
Well, first, Josh, I know you had posted this, and I actually had commented for you in one of the forums. I think the first and foremost thing that you did was the right thing, right? Is that you did not go onto the property, right? Which would have actually been trespassing. So the moment you would have done that, cross the fence line and try to go get that drone, now you're talking real criminal charges. And that,
right.
You always want to avoid that. So you did the right thing by trying to go to somebody and saying, hey, I had this mistake. I'd like to get my drone back. Can I go onto the property and get it? Or can you do that for me? And so that is absolutely the right thing to do. Now, the challenge is, right, they didn't want to do that for you. And they have that right. They can choose that. And I basically will equate it this way, right? If somebody is flying a drone, or maybe they are throwing something over my fence line into my backyard, and it lands in a tree in my backyard, I'm probably going to say, you know what? I don't want you back in there. I don't want you climbing that tree, because the moment that you fall, that's on me. Yeah. That's my liability. That's my homeowner's insurance. I'm going to end up paying for that big time.
Right. Even people that burgle a house, if they injure themselves during the course of that burglary, can sue the homeowner, which is crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
But
so there is that cost, right? So you could negotiate to say, hey, I'm willing to pay X amount of dollars for you to go get that. That I understand that's your liability. You might have to get on a ladder. You may be risking your life. You may be risking, that ladder falls onto the pool and scratches the line or what have you. So there is that you can kind of grease the wheels and say, I understand. I'm going to help you if you help me, and try to make it a win-win situation. In your case, they didn't want to do that, right?
So the person you dealt with at the park, were they personable, or was it the corporate that made the decision?
That was the manager of the water park that made the initial decision, and a couple of days later, the owner spoke to the manager, and they supposedly changed their mind at that point and said that if they found it, they would return it. But by that point, it had there had been a couple of pretty large rainstorms, and they said they couldn't find it at that point.
So, I mean, it's not still in the tree, is it?
I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't have a way to know for sure, but
get a ticket to the park and go to that water thing and look. But this brings up such a great question, and that is something that everybody wants to know: is flying over private property trespassing? Does it differ? Is there one blanket answer? Does it differ from county to county, from neighborhood to neighborhood? What have you found? And then we'll ask Jason what the FAA thinks. So Ryan, what do you think?
Well, yeah. So the answer is maybe.
Okay.
It's a very gray area. So the FAA says that they control the airspace, right? And they claim from the first blade of grass on up to infinity, right? That has not been tested in a court of law. The closest that we actually got was back in a case, Hogwarts, where, and you may recall this guy, he actually got beaten up by a girl for flying a drone at a beach, right? And the whole drone community was upset that happened. Well, this guy had gone off later and put a 9mm pistol on his drone and shot that. He put a flamethrower on his drone and roasted a turkey in his backyard with that. And the question came up that the FAA was chasing after him to say, you cannot put a weaponized item on your drone. And they went after him. And they went after him in a federal court. And the federal judge made a very curious question in that. He said, I'm looking at the FAA's idea that they, own from that they not own, but control from the first blade of grass on up to the sky. And he said that contestment is not really within my scope here. But if I were to have to answer that question, I don't know that I would agree with the FAA. So he put in that big question mark as to, hey, where does that control begin? And if we go to Cosby, right, the Cosby case in the 1940s, a chicken farmer, I think everybody knows about this.
Yeah, the 85 feet or whatever.
Yeah, 83 feet. There is that idea that at some level, a homeowner owns at least a certain amount of property above their house or above their land, as long as it's within their ability to have enjoyable space, right? So does that mean below the treetops? Probably. Does it mean, 10 feet above the roof? Don't know.
There's a point where it becomes invasive, like creepy. Everybody has, every layman who doesn't know about drones has an idea of how low a drone has to be able to film their face or whatever. I mean, there are drones like Mavic 3 that we can zoom in and see Luann's 12-piece bikini, but for the most part, I would say the lion's share of drone owners aren't spying and being creepers. But there are.
It's just the few bad ones that you hear about, that make it in the press. There's like this one on the beach and everything else. And I'm with you, Ryan, and you're exactly right. It's yes, from the first blade of grass on up to Elon Musk controls much above 80,000 feet. I feel like anyways after that. But Josh, first off, kudos to you for having the humility to come on here and do this. And I'll share with you a good example. One of the reasons I personally believe Ken is so successful is not because of his singing and bad jokes and everything else. It's because he's willing to share his crashes with everybody and say, I'm a human, I screw up too. So kudos to you for being willing to do this. And just realize, what everyone's sharing with you and in the chat, everyone's just speaking from a place of love because we want you to continue to get better and better at what you're doing. Did you break any rules or regulations? I couldn't tell if you had the drone within visual line of sight the entire time being across the lake. It's very possible you did. I wasn't there and haven't been to Canandaigua to go recreate that or anything else. I also feel the water park could have been a little bit better to you. And you didn't get into this, Josh. Maybe you can explain more on it. But I read all the police reports and the court case and everything else, sharing how the police officer went there, and all of a sudden they couldn't find the drone, and now this drone's magically missing. Where did it go? Yes, you said you had storms, but did somebody get up there and take it down? And where is it today? That's the other question that I would have with all of that. And I realize, and you say you lost the case. Ryan, you would know win versus lose better. I read it as, listen, the judge said the damage that was caused to the water park versus the damage that was caused to your drone, it kind of just washes even everything else, and we're just walking away from this thing. No one's paying anybody anything. It's kind of how I read it. I'm not an attorney, Ryan. I mean, did he truly lose? I don't know. I read it as they just kind of washed the slate clean.
Yeah, I do think it was a wash, and I actually think you got railed by an attorney, right? That it was not just the park owner standing there arguing their case. They had actually had an attorney come in who cited some other case law and used that against you, so that they didn't have to have the park owner say, yeah, I saw it in the tree. Yeah, this is what happened to it. I think the other challenge here, it magically disappears. No, it doesn't. They know where that drone is. They got that drone. You have to know that.
Yeah, so somebody's recording their daughter's recital on your SD card right now.
Yeah.
Josh, let me ask you this. Had you familiarized yourself with any of the drone regulations before you flew? And you're a hobbyist, you're not a 107 holder hobbyist?
Right.
Okay. Did you feel like at any point that you were doing something wrong?
No, not at all. I probably was flying too low for the circumstances, but it wouldn't have been a legal thing in my view. It just would have been a practical thing. I was just flying too low, I think, and too close to the trees. But legally, I don't think I was doing anything wrong.
Well, and if we could go back to Roseland Waterpark's no drone policy, you said you launched from an Arby's parking lot, but I read it on their website. Thanks, Ken. How does it read, Ken? It's too small to see over here.
Roseland Waterpark is a family-friendly park. Smoking alcohol and use of profanity is prohibited. What
the drones?
Are they
the drone part?
Talking about these losers? I'm just kidding. Family-appropriate attire is required.
No 12 pieces.
Right. Apparel with rivets and sandals. You can't wear a rivet. I guess that's to protect their equipment, maybe. Children in diapers are required to wear swim diapers in the pool. Well, yeah, I'm on board with that. With that. Yeah, we don't want any of that. We don't want that. Let's see. The drone policy. Okay, let me go here. Out of safety concerns for guests. But by the way, were you wearing a diaper when you were flying the drone? No. Okay. All right. So you're good there. All right. Out of safety concerns for guests and employees and resort property, as well as concerns for individual parts of the operation, can't do it, including recreational and hobbyists, without prior written authorization from the water park. This prohibition includes drone used for filming, videotaping, as well as any drone used by media or journalists. Some lawyer wrote this.
Yeah, the same one that stood against poor Josh, too.
Yeah, and it says any violation of this policy may involve suspension of privileges, personal. Yeah, so they did this in anticipation of what happened with you. Clearly.
Also, in that policy, it mentions that it extends to drones launched outside of the water park property, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
that's why I was
explicitly states
that's where they're overreaching, right, Ryan?
Big time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I pointed that out too in court. I actually admitted that policy in there and showed that they were trying to they extend that policy outside of their authority.
They will do that. They will do that overreach if you let them. They'll go to Kinko's and put up no drone zone or whatever. Man, what's going to happen with all this? How will this all pan out, Ryan? I keep hearing this over and over and over again. Like,
it's constant, isn't it?
It is just constant. How do you? I get these. I don't get as many of these stories as you do, but it just
yeah,
it's
and
so
I
frustrating.
think the challenge is right now we have a lot of states that are ponying in to say we are going to allow our citizens to be able to disallow drones over their house. And, you know, you can't do that. I mean, yeah, okay. Amazon is not going to have their delivery drones, but we just saw KFC is going to have theirs. So
yeah,
my neighbor wants KFC. You can't fly over my house. That's not going to fly,
it's not
literally. Right?
Yeah. So
but you have states standing up to do that, and it's just mind-boggling.
How far behind will legislation be? Because innovation always outpaces legislation, and will it always be that way? I mean, at some point when the toaster came out, people are like, well, holy hell, you mean I don't have to hold my bread over the fire tomorrow? This is witchcraft, you know? But eventually, we got used to the toaster. We know not to put our hand in it. You know what I mean? But, you know, eventually drones will become as innocuous as a microwave, and we'll all know about them, and we won't be afraid of them anymore. And everybody.
The scary part is, right, when we think about cars, we use a car every single day, right? When they first came out, the first laws said somebody has to stand 10 feet in front of the car waving a red flag, and has to stand 10 feet in back of the car waving a red flag, and you were limited to 5 miles an hour. Well, that rule stood the test of time for about 20 years. So think about that. How, you know, we're in drones, and we're only in the first, 10 years of drones.
So this is
what's going to happen.
Still the Wild West. By the way, if anybody in the chat has any questions, I'm keeping an eye on it. If you have any questions for any of these guys, please ask away. But Jason, as far as, because people are always getting into these situations.
Yeah.
How do we tell? I mean, is there one app with all the answers? Do we all have to go to Sky Vector and figure out sectional charts and hurt our brains? What do we do?
You're not going to hurt. Maybe it only hurts your brain.
It hurts my brain. Sectional chart.
Again, Josh, I don't. From looking at it again and knowing that you're just a hobbyist as well, I don't see that you did anything wrong, right? As far as that goes, I see a lot of things we could have done better and a lot of smarter decisions we could have made instead. The Roseland Waterpark, I think they could have done things better as well. We just have two people that were not on the same page with all this, a little bit of a silly drone policy on their part. But I think it's just two parties that could have came together for a better resolution on that.
Yeah.
I can say, Josh, too, education's a big part of this, and I would be more than happy to donate you a copy of Remote Pilot 101 to get you in there, get you earning your 107 and everything else too, because I think as you learn from this, and there's nothing better than that real world street smarts that you just got, expensive street smarts and everything else. But I'd love to hook you up with that, my friend. I'll grab your email from Ken and we'll make that happen.
Oh, excellent.
I'd appreciate that.
And
big. That's great. You take him up on that offer. Seriously.
One of the questions, and this is the question. Somebody said, Carl said, if a plane fell on the water park, would they get to keep it? That's the thing.
Yeah.
If you have your own front yard and a fence, and the neighbor kid throws their ball into your yard, is that your ball? No, you should give it back. Are you obligated to give it back?
Okay, so let's look at it this way. What a cool analogy, Ken. If an airplane fell, we'll say, on there, do they get to keep the airplane? No, because it's a U.S. registered aircraft. It's the same reason, I know this will blow up the chat now, but it's the same reason you don't shoot down a drone. You can't shoot down a drone. You are shooting at a U.S. registered aircraft.
Yep.
So whether it was a drone in a tree or a Cessna 172 in a tree, it's still a registered aircraft.
And along those lines, if the FAA considers drones actual real aircraft, actual manned aircraft can land anywhere in an emergency. What if you have an emergency and you have to crash land in the amusement park?
It's pilot and command responsibility of the final authority as the safety of that flight.
The problem, right?
Okay, here he is. Problem.
This is where you get into the ugliness. Yeah, so let's say you land your Cessna in that tree, and what's going to happen to that tree? It's going to be decimated, right? So the challenge is the property owner has damages that they now can sue for negligence, right? Or they don't even have to sue because you're trying to get this thing back. So just as I'm sorry, I forgot the name again.
Josh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Josh and Jason. I got to remember that. So Josh, just as Josh had crashed into that tree, the park owner could say, well, you've done $600 worth of damage to my tree. Now you got to prove that, right? That might be a challenge with a Cessna. Oh yeah, you decimated that tree. That's $600. You probably decimated a whole lot more. So they can get restitution for those types of damages.
That's true. My morning show partner on the radio, Jason, hope you're watching, Jason, because I'm going to tell your soybean story. He had to ditch in a soybean field. And I asked just flippantly, like, well, did you pay the farmer for the soybeans? Yes, he had to pay for the soybeans that he ruined with his plane. So, I'm sure maybe you helped the gardener out a little bit with your drone, clipping a few leaves off the top. So there's, what damages did they say that you did to equal the amount of
That's my
drone?
curiosity.
Yeah.
In my case,
yes. What did they say?
No, they didn't claim any damages. What the decision was based off of is that it doesn't count as a conversion on their part if it's just a refusal to deliver, if the goods have been lost through negligence, and that's coming from Link Partners Incorporated versus Senderoics or something.
And that was one half of the decision, but the first half was to say that if there were damages, that they would offset, and so that's the curiosity.
Wow.
What damages did they claim? And it didn't sound like they claimed any.
No, they didn't claim any damages, but basically the damages that I was owed would be diminished in proportion to my assumption of risk.
That's what the judge. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
The risk to go up there and get it. Right.
And I think the other thing that the judge had claimed in terms of the decision I saw was that they were looking at the risk that you undertook and flying the drone over water. And if you had crashed in the water, would that drone be worth anything? And I'm guessing that you said no, that it couldn't be recoverable. And I would suspect that's a mistake, right?
Yes, because
if you do crash in the water.
You need the corpse to send back to DJI so they can replace it.
Wow.
Right. So there is value in a drone that's even been, 6 foot under.
Right. Wow. It's just, I just don't like all this. I just don't like it.
I do wonder how that other scenario would apply, like with a helicopter instead of an airplane, if it had an engine failure and made a landing without doing any damages to the tree, per se, if they would be able to just keep the helicopter, even if there were no damages to the property.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you have a gyrocopter, which is, one man thing, and it could easily land on a lawn and not do damages. I think your park might have said, oh, well, the grass got smushed, well, okay, that's great, but account that for a dollar amount, right?
Yeah. Josh, do you have another drone, or are you out now?
I'm out for now. I'll probably get another one at some point.
Have you been put off on drones by this experience, or are you still?
Oh, no, definitely not.
Okay, because I see some super chats coming in. A couple people are donating a couple super chats to help your drone fund, and I'll get that to you.
Awesome.
Thank you, 107 Drones, and Jill Simmons, and a few others. So what kind of drone was it?
It was a Mini 2.
Yeah. So you're gonna get another Mini 2?
Have the remote and everything. So.
Oh yeah, that's the worst, isn't it? Going home with just the remote. That's terrible.
Right.
Been there.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awful. But at least you captured the footage for us to see on.
Yeah. I do wish I had a body cam for the interaction. That's the only thing that I think going forward, I'll definitely have that. That would have been interesting to keep as well.
Well, you're a fine young man. Is it okay if I tell people your age?
Yeah.
Okay. He's 18. I know he looks younger. And I had to ask him how old he was because I was like, you're going to be on a stream with a bunch of dudes, and you're going to have to ask your mom if you're not over 18. But he is 18, and he's a fine young man, and I'm happy to say that even though you don't have a drone right now, you're still part of the drone community, and I thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Hey, let's have one big lesson out of this too, right?
Yeah.
And it's something we haven't yet talked about, and that is you can buy insurance. And that would have solved your problem entirely, right? So if you had gone to State Farm is one that they have a personal articles of protection policy, $60 a year, you crash that drone, you sink it in Lake Michigan, it flies away from you forever. You just go and, hey, I lost my drone. Boom, they write you a check for a brand new one.
And
so that's
I'm
something
wondering,
to really consider.
It is, and I'm also wondering if a Verifly, has anybody, now I use the Verifly app, but it's just liability. Has anybody ever used Verifly and had to make a claim or be protected? Because it's not personal property protection, but it is liability. I used it
when they do have haul protection now that you can get as well. Yeah.
Okay.
But I have not heard of a claim yet.
Oh my goodness. We got Dyna Drone with $20. Thank you very much. Here, this will get you going. And Mike Roche Media out of Syracuse. He says, get Josh a drone. Great young man. Thank you, Mike Roche. And and here is Josh to personally thank you.
Thank you.
See?
I appreciate it.
That was very sincere. Awesome. Wow. See how awesome the drone community is?
Very true.
We are awesome. Thank you so much for, again, sharing your story. Hopefully it helps other people, and one day we won't have to keep having these discussions and bringing these guys in. But thank you very much, sir. And I will get you these funds, and I will get you guys all hooked up with email. Appreciate it, sir.
Super.
All right. We'll see you later.